We're spending Christmas in Palm Beach, and that's final. Come on, Jake, what's there to think about? Make up your mind, and I'll make this holiday unforgettable. Sarah nervously fidgeted with the end of her scarf, avoiding my gaze. You're always dragging your feet until the last minute. I remained silent, studying the intricate patterns on the ceramic tiles of our favorite coffee shop. My thoughts were a jumble. On one hand, I had been planning to propose to her on Christmas. On the other, I wanted everything to be perfectly planned, not rushed. Damn, women always throw a wrench in the works with their unpredictability. I looked at her and barely recognized her. Where was that gentle girl who, just 6 months ago, would blush at my every touch? Now, before me stood an impetuous woman demanding an immediate answer. She was practically steamrolling me. All I needed was time to think. I mean, who plans a Christmas getaway just a week before the holiday? Sarah, you understand this is crazy, right? I tried to keep my voice steady, though I was seething inside. The tickets will cost an arm and leg, and hotels will be packed. That's exactly why I'm saying, decide now. She lifted her chin stubbornly. I have a contact at the travel agency who can hold a suite at the Breakers for us until tomorrow morning. Ocean view with a perfect spot to watch the fireworks. And just imagine, in the morning we can stroll along an empty boardwalk, watch the waves crash on the shore. Listen, Sarah covered my hand with hers, her voice softening. I know this is super spontaneous, but isn't that the whole point? Picture it, the lights of Palm Beach at night, champagne on the balcony, just you and me. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, and I felt my doubts beginning to melt away. Maybe she was right. Maybe sometimes you just need to trust the moment. When Sarah really wanted something, her brown eyes seemed to light up from within with a warm golden glow. Like that time in July when we got caught in a downpour in Central Park. Another girl would have whined or gotten angry, but she just laughed, pulled off her sandals, and started dancing barefoot in the puddles, pulling me along with her. Her long chestnut hair got soaked and curled into large rings, and her simple cotton dress clung to her figure. I've always dreamed of dancing in the rain, she shouted, throwing her head back to the sky. That's when I knew I was a goner. And now she was looking at me with that exact same expression, as if proposing another crazy adventure. Maybe she really was right. Maybe sometimes you just need to trust the moment and her carefree confidence that everything would work out. What about your parents? I made one last attempt at resistance. They're expecting us for the family dinner. They'll survive, she waved dismissively. I'm 25, it's time to live my own life. Besides, she smiled slyly. They were planning to go to Aunt Val's in Connecticut anyway. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The numbers in my account seemed to mock me, just enough for an insanely expensive tour package. Money I've been saving for the wedding. Fine. I surrendered. Book it. Sarah squealed with joy and threw her arms around my neck, ignoring the surprised looks from other customers. You're the best. She pecked me on the cheek. I'll call Tony of the agency right now. She fluttered outside with her phone in hand, while I was left alone with my cold coffee and a strange premonition. At that moment, my phone pinged, a notification from the bank about a substantial withdrawal. Right after came a message from Sarah. All set. Flights at 10 a.m. on the 24th. Love you, moi. Nothing seemed to foretell the nightmare I would plunge into right before I was about to propose. The suite at the Breakers exceeded all expectations. It was exactly as Sarah had promised, a spacious luxury suite with floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected the entire city. The scatter of lights cascaded down to the ocean, like stars deciding to take a midnight swim in the dark waves. Champagne in a silver bucket, rose petals on the pristine white bed. Everything was like a scene from a romantic movie. The clock struck midnight, and Palm Beach exploded with fireworks. Champagne? Sarah held out a glass to me. Tiny bubbles danced in the delicate flute like miniature stars. To Christmas, I smiled, admiring her. In her long silver dress, she looked ethereal, especially now, as the bursts of fireworks painted her silhouette first in gold, then in ruby. To us, she took a sip and set down her glass. I'm so happy we're here. That you agreed to this adventure, even though it cost you a pretty penny. I'm doing everything I can to make sure you won't regret a single minute of your decision. Me too, I pulled her close. Although a week ago, I thought this idea was completely bonkers. Sometimes you need to do crazy things. She rested her head on my shoulder, especially at Christmas. We stood on the balcony, watching the festive city. Somewhere below, music was playing and laughter rang out. But up here, we were in a different world. Our own world, where only we existed, along with the night and the stars. Sarah, I turned her to face me. You asked why I agreed to this trip. Yes, she looked at me intently. And because I've been wanting to tell you something important for a while. I pulled a velvet box from my pocket, and I don't think I could find a better moment. Her eyes widened. She froze, looking from the box to me and back. I love you, I said, opening the lid. Will you marry me? At that moment, an especially bright firework bloomed in the sky, bathing everything in gold. Sarah stared at the ring, hands pressed to her lips. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course, yes. I slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Sarah examined it, turning her hand and admiring how the light played on the diamond. It's perfect, she whispered and leaned in to kiss me. I've waited so long for this moment, dreamed of it. I don't remember how we ended up in the room. Everything was a blur. Her touches, whispers, heartbeat. The bed smell of roses, fresh petals now tangled in her disheveled hair. At that moment, I thought we were both intoxicated by the overwhelming feelings and champagne bubbles. I missed you so much, she breathed, running her fingers through my hair. God, Tony, how I missed you. Tony. Time stopped. A ringing silence fell over the room, with only the distant holiday fireworks still booming. I slowly raised my head, not believing my ears. Sarah froze, her eyes wide with fear. What did you say? My voice sounded hoarse and unfamiliar. Nothing. I don't know what I'm saying. Jake, She tried to touch my face, but I caught her hand. Who the hell is Tony? She remained silent, biting her lips. Outside, an especially bright firework exploded, illuminating the room in an eerie red glow. In that flash, I saw her face, confused, guilty, and scared. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. I rolled off the bed, fumbling for my clothes in the dark. My hands were shaking, buttons refusing to cooperate. Blood pounded in my temples, my vision blurry, either from the champagne or from rage. Jake, wait. Sarah jumped up, wrapping herself in a sheet. It's just a mistake. I was drinking. I didn't mean to. A mistake. I finally managed with the buttons and was now searching for my shoes. You know what's a mistake? That I brought you here at all. That I bought this damn ring. That I believed. I picked up the velvet box, stared at it for a second, then hurled it against the wall. Merry Christmas, I spat, throwing open the door. Hope this Tony of yours appreciates the romantic ocean view suite. The first morning of December greeted me with a hangover and the hum of cars outside the hostel window. During the night, I had wandered through unfamiliar streets until I stumbled upon this cheap inn in the old part of town. The receptionist, a half-asleep girl with purple hair, didn't even ask for ID, just took the cash and handed over a key to a room on the first floor. My phone had died during the night. I plugged it in, turned it on, and immediately regretted it. 23 missed calls from Sarah, 13 WhatsApp messages, and one on Telegram. All from her. Jake, please answer. This is a horrible mistake. Let's talk. I'll explain everything. Just let me know you're okay. The last message had come an hour ago. I imagined her sitting in that luxurious suite, biting her lips and trying to come up with another excuse. Everything inside me clenched with pain and anger. There was a knock at the door, insistent, demanding. Mr. Wilson, the manager's voice sounded worried. There's a visitor here for you. I stayed silent, hoping they'd think the room was empty. Jake, I know you're in there. Sarah's voice trembled. Please open up. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Yes, we do. She was almost shouting. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. I walked to the door, leaned my forehead against it. On the other side of this thin barrier stood the woman I had, until yesterday, considered the love of my life, the one I was ready to give everything to, the one I had dreamed of growing old with. What do you want to explain? My voice sounded tired. How you accidentally called me another man's name right after I proposed. Stop it. She slapped her palm against the door. It's not like that. Tony. God, why does this have to be so complicated? Because you're making it complicated, I stepped away from the door. Leave, Sarah. No, I won't. Hysteria crept into her voice. Either open the door, or I'll stand here all day. I don't care what people think. I knew that tone. Knew she wasn't bluffing. She really would stand there until evening if she had to. The lock clicked. She burst into the room, disheveled, with red-rimmed eyes. She was still wearing yesterday's silver dress and my jacket that I'd forgotten in the suite. In her hands, the crumpled velvet box with the ring. I've been looking for you all night, she spoke rapidly, as if afraid I'd try to throw her out again. Called every hotel downtown. God, I was about to go to the police. Why? I turned to the window, afraid you'd miss your brilliant explanation. Because I love you, you idiot. She threw the box at me. Because I can't lose you over a stupid mistake. A stupid mistake. I caught the box and squeezed it until my knuckles turned white. You know what's really a stupid mistake? That I believed in this fairy tale. In us, in you. She stood frozen in the middle of the room, hugging herself. In the morning light, it was especially noticeable how haggard she looked after this night. I need to tell you something, she finally said, about who Tony is, and about why I agreed to go to Palm Beach specifically. Not sure I want to know. But you need to. She sank down on the edge of the bed. Jake, Sarah took a deep breath. I have to tell you, Tony is my ex-husband. I remained silent, staring out the window. Outside, sparse snowflakes were drifting down. We were only married for a year, her voice shook, and divorced quickly, because he cheated on me with my best friend. And what does this have to do with our trip? I still couldn't bring myself to look at her. Tony now works as a manager at the hotel I suggested we book. Ah, I see. So that's why you insisted on the breakers, to see your ex on my dime. Sarah sobbed. No, I mean, God, this is so hard to explain. We spent Christmas there too. 5 years ago. That's when he proposed to me. I couldn't have imagined you'd have the same idea. Perfect. I spun around to face her. Just perfect. So you decided to recreate your romantic story, but with a new leading man, working through your unresolved issues. No, Jake, no. She grabbed my hands. Not on purpose. I'm just trying to explain why I said his name. When you proposed, there on the balcony, it was so similar. The same fireworks, the same ocean view. For a second it felt like you were with him again. I pulled my hands away. Like the past came back, she lowered her head. You see, he won't leave me alone. Sometimes sends flowers to my office, writes, calls, says he's changed, wants to start over. And you want to start over? No, she almost screamed. I don't even respond to him. Trust me. I love you, Jake. It's just, sometimes the past hits you like a tidal wave, especially when the situation is so similar. Plus, I was drunk. I looked at her disheveled in her wrinkled evening dress with mascara smudged under her eyes and didn't know what I was feeling. Anger? Pity? Disappointment? You know what hurts the most? I finally said, not that you called me his name, but that you lied. About the travel agency, about the chance meeting. You knew you worked there, right? So you were heading straight to him. That's what I can't wrap my head around. Sarah remained silent, and that silence was more telling than any confession. I thought, she stumbled. I thought if I told you the truth, you wouldn't want to go, and I hoped this trip would change everything in my head. How's that? That old memories would magically disappear when new ones were layered on top. I let out a bitter laugh. You know what's the difference between us, Sarah? I wanted to start our story while you were trying to rewrite your old one. That's not true. She shook her head. I honestly love you, Jake. Maybe. I walked to the window. but you're not ready for a new relationship, and it's not even about him. It's about you. A heavy silence fell over the room. Somewhere in the corridor, a door slammed, followed by footsteps and laughter, people returning from Christmas celebrations. So what now? Her voice sounded hollow. Now, I pulled out my phone, searched for a cab number. Now I'm going home. And you need to deal with your past. Really deal with it, not hide it behind new relationships. And us. She took a step toward me. Do we have a chance? I shook my head. Not now. Not anytime soon. You know what they say, you can't step in the same river twice. But you tried to do it with two different rivers at the same time. We need to take a break. Sarah sank down on the edge of the bed, hunched over and hugging herself. In the morning light, she looked so young and lost. The cab will be here in 5 minutes. I zipped up my jacket. Keep the ring, or throw it away, whatever you want. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm not angry, that was the truth. Just, sometimes loving isn't enough. You need to be ready for that love too. I walked out, carefully closing the door behind me. The corridor smelled of pine and tangerines. Christmas Day had just begun. The February evening was raw and cold. I sat in that same coffee shop where it all began, waiting for Sarah. Over the past month, I had barely thought about her. Work, gym, meetings with friends kept me busy. To be honest, I tried to keep myself completely free from that nightmare. The phone stayed silent. She kept her promise not to write or call. I was sure the pain had dulled, that the worst was behind me. And then this message. We need to meet. It's important. She was 15 minutes late. Thinner, pale, wearing a loose knit sweater. She never used to wear clothes like that. Sorry, I don't have much time. I pointedly looked at my watch. I have an important meeting in half an hour. Sarah froze, crumpling a napkin between her fingers. The coffee shop was quiet, with only a couple of college students chattering at the next table. You're not even going to ask how I am. Her voice quivered. Sarah, I sighed. Let's not do this. A month has passed. Everything's cooled off. Cooled off. She leaned forward. Well, I think things are just heating up. You'll definitely be happy about this. I'm pregnant. Hot coffee burned my throat. I slowly set down the cup. Whose is it? Her cheeks flushed. How could you? 6 weeks, Jake. Christmas night. The night you called me another man's name. I smirked. Sorry, but that's not the most convincing argument. I left and you stayed at the hotel where Tony was. I didn't sleep with him. She practically shouted this, making the students turn around. I haven't been with anyone but you. I love you. I want a family. With you. I looked at her, so beautiful, so desperate. Somewhere deep inside, the old feeling stirred. Okay, I said slowly. Let's do a DNA test, and then we'll talk. What? She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. A test? You really don't trust me at all. What do you take me for? After everything that happened, I shook my head. Sorry, but trust needs to be earned back. Her face went white. You're so heartless. I'm carrying your child, and you're talking about tests. As if I. She broke off, biting her lip. Tears glistened in her eyes. You know what? Her voice rang with hurt. Now I need to think about whether I want to tie my life to someone who trusts me so little. But something in her tone was off. Something false, theatrical, like a line from a bad soap opera. Of course, think about it. I took out my wallet, put down money for the coffee. Just remember, my condition stays the same. She jumped up, grabbing her purse. You'll regret this, Jake. You'll really regret this. The last phrase sounded almost frightened. I watched as she hurried toward the exit, slightly wobbling on her high heels. Her walk no longer had its former confidence. Outside, a drizzle was falling. On the table, the untouched vanilla latte grew cold. Strange how quickly life teaches its lessons. Just a month ago, I had naively been ready to propose to her, believing in a beautiful fairy tale about last-minute holiday deals. Got caught up in the emotions, let myself be swept away by her enthusiasm. And what was the result? A ruined vacation, a broken heart, and another man's name in the most intimate moment. No way. I won't fall for that trick again. She can call me heartless, accuse me of distrust, but I won't let myself be manipulated anymore. Too familiar a pattern. First play on sympathy, then on conscience, then casually present a fait accompli, just like with the Palm Beach trip. Decide by tomorrow. Yeah, right. This time I'll be the one deciding. What, when, and under what conditions. And if she really is carrying my child, then a DNA test is the least she'll have to accept.